All right. Well, we have a guest. He's been patiently waiting. I did not want to bring him up because I didn't want to have to reintroduce him again. Mr. Mike out of Fulton County. Yeah, get a router. Just get something. So let's bring up the guest. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. There.
So briefly, tell everyone, the judge and everyone, who you are.
I'm Mike Russell. I'm a retired U.S. Army officer, spent 28 years in the United States Army. After retirement, I moved to Atlanta about 5 years ago and have been involved in local politics most of that time, and currently working to help the seniors and legacy residents in my community. And in doing so, I have to deal with the folks at Fulton County and the city quite often. And in doing so, I've discovered firsthand the corruption that is pervasive in both our city and our county, which has become basically the laughingstock of America because of the corruption here.
That's the same one Miss Fanny's in. Doesn't she, as DA, find it in herself, since she can go after a president, to go after the minor criminality or the major criminality in her district? What happened?
Well, the issue is that half of the cronies are her friends.
Oh, my.
So you have the sheriff, who we can talk about, who's just off the chain with the stuff he's been doing.
Didn't he file against a lady in domestic violence court because she keeps exposing his corruption?
Yes.
Won't stop. What is it? She's accusing him of misappropriating funds, right?
Misappropriating funds, illegally firing workers, the deaths in the jail. We had 2 this month. One in which he corrupted the crime scene. And as you know, Judge, anybody who's been in law enforcement, I was in law enforcement in the Army as a Provost Marshall, you know that you do not touch a crime scene until the senior investigator or detective has released that crime scene. In one of the murders in the prison, or in the jail, the county jail, he had an inmate clean up the blood and clean off the murder weapon before the investigator arrived. And
this
you also know
the guy that sued this woman, saying she was harassing him because she would not stop accusing him of misappropriating funds. This is the same sheriff, right?
Yes, Sheriff Labat.
That sued, that filed this handwritten thing in family
court,
affairs court, domestic violence court. So it's domestic violence now if a citizen accuses somebody of wrongdoing. Oh, that's great.
So
that's great.
So okay, so Mike, so me and you spoke last week, and you personally don't have a direct legal issue with Fanny or the sheriff. However, you voted for the sheriff. You did support him at one time. And then, when you started to see all of the corruption coming out of Fulton County and coming out of his office and her DA office, you're like, listen, these people should no longer be in office. We kind of, and I said, I want to take this down a different lane, still the same topic, because the Fulton County crisis is what I'm calling it. And majority of Fulton County is run by Black people in these high power positions. I think is what Fulton County has 80% Black or 70% Black, but it's majority Black, right? The county, even the cities within it. And you said to me, a lot of these people who are currently in power, right, come from the legacy out of the civil rights movement, pioneers from this, they're the offspring of the civil rights movement pioneers. Because we all know Atlanta, what did you call it? The cradle of the civil rights movement, correct?
Yes.
And so the conversation that me and you had, and I said, that's the direction where I want to go, is talk about, I did write it down, Black legacy of corruption. So can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so a lot of the folks who are in power now are second or third generation from the original civil rights movement leaders. The only one left alive is Ambassador Andrew Young, and he's not in office, but he was our mayor and he was our congressman at one point. And so you have some good folks like Michael Julian Bond, who's the son of Julian Bond, the first Black elected to the state legislature after since the Civil War. You have Boone on the city council, and then you have someone like Marvin Arrington, whose father was I hate to use the word lesser figure, but less famous figure who was on the city council for a very long time, very honorable man, very much respected and loved in Atlanta. But his son is the exact opposite. And he's in that group with Fanny Willis and the sheriff and Natalie Hall, who are just outright corrupt. And the thing that kills me about it is they claim to be for the little people. Well, I live in a neighborhood that the average income is $40,000 a year, when the city's average income is 70. We have seniors whose homes are literally falling apart because they were built on a creek basin. And they're spending money on trivial things for personal gain. And this in the home of Dr. King, the leader, and the legacy of our legacy in Atlanta is that we are the cradle of the nonviolent civil rights movement. That is our claim to fame. And the leaders that we have now are failing us miserably, and it's disgusting what they're doing to the reputation of this city and our legacy.
Let me ask you a question. Who is the other sheriff you have there in Fulton County?
Well, we have one sheriff, one county sheriff, that's Labatt.
You don't have a white sheriff that's secretly over the black sheriff?
No, we don't.
You don't have a secret district attorney, white guy that's really behind all of what Fanny is doing, going after Trump and all of the rest of them. You don't have that guy hiding around someplace?
No.
Seriously. I mean, they keep talking about they're victims of white supremacy. So where exactly is the white supremacy that's holding them back?
There is no white supremacy holding back. It's just a race card. It's another excuse for failure
Why
and corruption.
keep saying it? Aren't they honorable people who can be trusted, who run public office for the benefit of the people? Why would they lie and say that somehow or another or imply there's a white sheriff that's really running stuff that won't let him do what he needs to do, or that there's a white guy running the DA's office that won't let her do what she's supposed to do? Where are these people? Where do they come up with these ideas? Oh, that's it. They liked this legacy of being down on the knees while somebody was beating somebody across the head until somebody else felt guilty about it. So maybe that's their worldview. There's got to be some white person beating them across the head while they're down on their knees. And the rest of the white folk that will save them just haven't figured that out yet, to come in and save them from somebody beating them across the head. Isn't that it? Is that what's going on?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
you
can
mean
tell.
they are deluded? And somehow or another, I know. They heard it growing up so much that they are a little insane, and somewhere sitting across to the other side of the kitchen table is the ghost of a white plantation owner that's telling them what they can't do. Is what's going on?
Well,
The sad thing is that the folks who supported both Fannie Willis and the sheriff, who funded their campaigns, went out and knocked on doors for them, were a lot of white folks, right? That now have turned against them because of the corruption. Because amongst the voters who voted for them, thought that they were going to clean up the corruption after Paul Howard and the other things that were happening, but they've just made things worse. And, Fannie went in that church and she played the race card, the woman card, and the God card to hide from her own misdeeds and malfeasance. And unfortunately, some people bought it. but they have no shame. And I like to say they don't believe in a living God, because anybody who believed in a living God would not go behind the pulpit in a historically black church and tell lies like that.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't Fanny say she was not going to allow any of this sexual dalliance to go on in the DA's office after she got accused of dallying with the previous DA, threw him under the bus? But then her father, let's see, that's John Floyd, the attorney. He got on there and testified that she was essentially shacking with, what is it? The DJ that had some kind of government job during the day. And then find out about, oh, Mr. Wade was slipping in there too. Is that the same one? Yeah,
Yep.
that's the one, isn't it? Okay. And all of this white supremacy that's keeping Fulton County. Now, come on. Where is the Klan that's keeping everything in check? What's wrong with the mainstream media that they won't let us see the Klan? That they won't see all of these plantation owners spilling over from Cobb County or something? Well, what's going on here? Why are we being deceived by the press so we can't see these things?
Well, let me ask you this too about Fulton County, because Atlanta is in Fulton County, and what was the name of the first black mayor? Maynard.
Maynard Jackson.
Maynard Jackson.
Now doesn't he come from the civil rights legacy as well?
He was a little bit younger than those individuals. He was elected in the 70s. He was originally, I believe, from Louisiana. Like a lot of folks moved to Atlanta back in the day. And Maynard Jackson is still, revered as a hero in Atlanta, being the first black mayor. The airport is codenamed after him and another mayor. And he did a lot of things for this city to make it better. But unfortunately, in modern times, that has not been the case. It's just been one corrupt leader after the next. And, we're one of the cities in America that has a disproportionately poor black population. The wealth gap in Atlanta is huge. And you see that when you have everybody who's in power in Atlanta, for the most part, for the last 30, 40, 50 years, has been black. Majority on the city council, majority judges, majority on the county commission. All the mayors since Maynard Jackson have been black. So how is it that we still have these persistent problems in our city? Homelessness is rising. Where I go to church on the corner of MLK and Central Avenue, right down the street from the Capitol, right in front of the county courthouse, it's covered with homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
A block from the state capitol and the city hall and the county, right in the middle of those three buildings where I go to church every Sunday morning, it's covered with homeless people, the vast majority of who are black. How is that possible if these elected officials are taking care of the people they say they care about? And the answer to the judge's question is they are not. They're taking care of themselves.
Isn't that what we're looking at when we're seeing Fanny and Mr. Wade exchange the cash, that she's laundering the money that she and the sheriff and the other folks have stolen by giving cash to Mr. Wade so he can put it on his tax reports, and it looks like it's been accounted for, and then he gives some of it back. Isn't that what we're looking at? Money is going someplace. What happened to the $7.5 million that you guys got to catch up with the press due, or the lagging prosecutions of all of the people that are sitting in the jail that your sheriff runs that haven't been formally charged for months and years and are just sitting there and languishing while she goes after Donald Trump? And
We've had two people die who've been in jail. The last one was there for 4 years.
it wasn't even formally charged.
Wasn't formally charged. Had another guy previously died, had been there over a year. The county had to pay his family, I think it was $1 million. We have a whole list of people that are in that jail who have not been formally charged. I personally know a family, a mother and a daughter, whose brother and son was murdered, 3 years ago now, and they have yet to bring him to trial. And the mother and the daughter reached out to me a couple of weeks ago because every time they go to court, the DA's office delays the case because they say they have more important cases ahead of that. What's more important than a murder trial? And the guy is out of jail with an ankle bracelet, and he's charged with murder, and it's not his first felony.
Donald Trump and, let's say, 16 other people that don't even live in Fulton County, for the most part, haven't even been in Fulton County. We are looking at that, and Judge McAfee is trying to give them a decent trial while all of these felons are just running around loose there, and the crime rate is absolutely ridiculous, and nobody's going to trial. Well, what are they doing?
Oh, go ahead, Mike. You want to say something? Go ahead.
I was just going to say the focus is on the big names so that she can go after those. I was curious as to why the DA was in DC and in New York fundraising when she's the district attorney of Fulton County. Why are folks in DC and New York funding her reelection campaign? And I think it's a simple answer, because they like what she's doing against Donald Trump. That's the main reason. That's the only reason. Because it's not because she's cleaned up crime in Fulton County. It's not because it's a safer place. It's not because her friend, the sheriff, is running a well-run jail. It's not because her other buddy, Natalie Hall, who cost the taxpayers of Fulton County $1 million because she was having an affair with her chief of staff. When he broke it off, she fired him, and then in the interim planted 3 tracking devices in his vehicles. So those are the people that she hangs with. And Marvin Arrington, you look them up online, they're all in the same pictures, they're all at the same fundraisers. And this is the corruption that is pervasive in Fulton County today. And that's why, they say Black Lives Matter. Well, do the Black lives in my neighborhood matter? The elderly people who don't have running water, toilets in their homes, who don't have adequate heat, don't even talk about air conditioning. I mean, my church, every week we're paying to keep people in their homes, pay their light and gas bill. And then Mr. Arrington, who's a legacy child from a civil rights leader, tried to raise the taxes in Fulton County by 14%. 14%.
In 1 year?
In 1 year, last year. And I went down there with a bunch of other people and raised holy hell, and they reduced it by about half. And his answer was, well, if we raise the tax, we'll have plenty of money. And the issue was there just happened to be an 80-some-odd-year-old woman right in front of me whose taxes had gone up the year before, and she couldn't pay them, and she was pleading for help. And when she sat down, it was my turn to speak, and I told Mr. Arrington and the rest of them, you say you care about these people, but if you raise these taxes by 14% in 1 year, you're going to put people like that lady who's been in her house for 50 years in a house that's paid for, you're going to put her on the street.
That's outrageous. That's white supremacy. Master Biden up in the White House, he done told his niggers down here in Georgia, where he got holdings outside of Delaware, down in Georgia, he done told his niggers what to do. And they's getting called to the carpet. So Miss Fanny got hand on hip doing snake dance charming with her head motion and all that. Cause them white folks up in D.C., they's mean. They done told her she ain't doing nothing. She getting frustrated because that means she can't bezel enough and she can't be well off enough and go sleep with everybody she wants and all this, that, and all that. And the neighbors is getting restless down there in Fulton County, Georgia.
I wanna bring up Rafeal Warnock, because he used to be the pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, the famous church where Martin Luther King was a preacher at. Can we add him in the Fulton County corruption pool? Because
yes. So, the Senate has this rule that you cannot receive outside income. It has to be limited. So he is still receiving, I want to say, I think it's $6,000 a month for a housing allowance. It's not a salary, it's a housing allowance from Ebenezer Baptist Church. Now, he's not even a minister there.
No. He can't have that. That's strictly forbidden in the United States Code, annotated when it deals with United States senators or representatives in the House. Oh, no, he's not.
He is receiving a stipend from the church of, I believe it's $6K a month. But that puts him in league with the guy that the sheriff is paying, because the sheriff is paying a part-time chaplain $6K a month and his assistant chaplain $6K a month for the county jail.
$6,000 a month for being part-time.
Yes.
You got to be kidding me.
I wish I was. I wish I was. So, and this is the guy whose wife is on tape, you can see it online, charged him with spousal abuse. And he's a reverend, and now he's a senator. It's the corruption in Fulton County seems to be never ending. And I say to folks, you know, we talk about Trump and Biden, that's important. But all politics are local. And we need help down here in Fulton County because the kids in the 3 schools around me can't read. They can't do basic math. Our roads are falling apart. We have a growing homeless crisis. And only thing they care about is the shiny new buildings and the World Cup that's coming. And rather than taking care of the people here, if we can clean up Fulton County and get rid of the corruption here, this would make a sea change across the nation. We need to get rid of, and I'll put it this way, if any of these politicians were white, half the population of Atlanta would be in the streets right now. If there was a white sheriff and people were dying weekly in the county jail, Black folks in Atlanta, all across the country, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all the rest would be down here in Fulton County raising hell. But because he's Black, they're giving him a pass. Well, and I ask the question, do those Black lives matter?
No, they don't. Look at Memphis. We now have been declared worse than Rikers Island in New York, the worst place in America to be incarcerated, according to Amnesty International. We've had 62 people die in custody, pre-trial, in the last 5 years that we've had a Black sheriff. His name is Floyd Bonner. And we've got the Black sheriff, first elected Black sheriff in America. Before that, I think we had maybe 4 people die over a 25 some year period. And now we've had 62 in 5 years under his care. Okay.
Well, let me ask this question.
What is this thing? What's to be done about this?
So this is the question I want to ask. That's to what you just asked, and Judge, what to be done about it? Isn't it to vote them out? Why do Black people keep voting for the same people and the same party line without pushing back, asking questions, vetting? So can you say that part of the blame falls on the Black population?
It does, in a way. One of the things they're doing against Khadijah Rahman, who's a county commissioner who's been calling out the corruption, who just like me voted for Fanny Willis and the sheriff, but once she saw the corruption, she's called it out. So what they're doing right now as we speak, they're putting up signs in the Black neighborhoods saying that Khadijah is a Republican, because they know if they label somebody as a Republican in a Black community, that's a no vote. Which is, of course, a lie. But that's the only thing they have on her, because she's called out the sheriff. She's called out her fellow county commissioner who cost the taxpayers $1 million for her affair with a staff member. And so they're coming after her because they cannot control her vote. And I pray to God that she wins and that the other ones lose so we can turn this around and start cleaning up Fulton County. I will tell you this, though. When Donald Trump came to Atlanta a couple of days ago, he was warmly received by Black folks.
Okay, so wait. Let me ask you this, because now the media is saying those Black people were from Blexit. It was staged when he went to Chick-fil-A and all, and he hugged a Black woman. Tell us, you're saying no, that's not true.
I used to be a member of Blexit, and I didn't see anybody on that camera that I knew. And I can tell you that when I talk to folks in my neighborhood and people that I know around the city, we've all said the same thing. We can't put our finger on it, but there's something happening in the Black community where people have had enough. I just had this discussion with one of my brothers, is that there is a change happening in the Black community where, and I will say that more Black people, I don't know the number, are going to vote Republican, or they're going to sit at home because they've had enough. They're not going to take it anymore. Now, there's some who act like they have Democrat stamped on their birth certificate and they're going to vote Democrat no matter what. But I think there is change afoot if the conservatives play their cards right, that they can win over these Black voters who have had absolutely enough with the illegal immigration, the crime, when most of the victims are Black, when we're sending money overseas to help everybody else but not helping the people here at home, the inflation that's out of control. Black folks are starting to see that they're being pushed back to the back of the economic bus, and they're not going to stand for it anymore.
You might want to also check to see behind the scenes if your DA, your sheriff, your county government is attempting to push forward with being a sanctuary city. Homeland Security is going around and it's making these undercover arrangements. We had that happen in Tennessee. We didn't know anything about it, and they sent a suburb of Nashville a note saying, "Congratulations, you're going to receive 6,000 illegal criminal crashes of the border. So get ready, Franklin."
We know that's happening at Fulton County, at the airport, Atlanta airport, the busiest in the world. It was uncovered a few weeks ago that they have a process there to process illegals to send them around the country. We also know that Atlanta's number 3 for human trafficking in the country. And there's been scant little done to address that issue, starting at the state level. And I don't understand why. I mean, it's modern day slavery, it's sex trafficking, it's drugs, it's human trafficking, and it's happening right here in Atlanta at the world's busiest airport on a daily basis.
And not only that, your former chief of police in Atlanta, Davis, a lady, I guess I can call her that, she had a little problem there in Atlanta. The news around here in Memphis, where she is now the chief, she had a problem with the SWAT team, but it turns out she was involved in that sex trafficking that was going on in Atlanta, and a lot of people she was protecting are now doing federal sentences for child pornography, manufacturing, and distribution. She got in that mess after she left Atlanta and went to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and now the crooks in Memphis hired her. So
you're talking about the Black female?
Yes, Black female, Davis.
Yeah, I wasn't here then, but the chief right after her, I can't remember her name, is white female. I think she's in Nashville now, was a good chief. And I'll tell you, the guy we have now, Derek Sherbaum, I think he's the best police chief in the country. He's done a great job of cleaning up the Atlanta police force. The guy before him, in my view, was incompetent, was a friend of the former mayor. But this guy, Sherbaum, has come in. He is working himself to death to try to clean up Atlanta. The rank and file policemen respect him. I know in my neighborhood, which is predominantly, I would say 90% Black, the times that he's come around to visit the community, people are lined up to talk to him, shake his hand, they feed him. He's very well respected. But he happens to be a white guy. And I just wish the rest of the public,
those white supremacists.
I just wish the rest of our public officials were as honest and hardworking as Chief Sherbaum is, and they would be respected as well as he is. I would say this about Mayor Dickens. The best thing he's done, the 2 things that he's done right since he's been mayor, is that he reversed his position on defunding the police, and he supported the building of the Public Safety Training Center, and he hired Sherbaum to be the new chief on his watch. Those are the two best things that Andre Dickens has done since he's been in office.
Well, good for him. The predecessor of this incompetent Chief Davis has let the department get completely out of control. Hell, two shot officers this got shot this weekend. One of them died by somebody that had been busted multiple times for carjacking, armed robbery, and violent assaults, and most recently had been caught in a hijacked car. Fell asleep in the damn thing with a pistol on his lap. So some idiot in the system ROR'd him, even though they were recommending a $150,000 bond. So in a couple of weeks, he went and got in the shootout with several officers while he and some other folk were in a stolen car. He got killed. He killed one cop, shot two more. So
Okay.
that's that kind of thing we have. Sex trafficking. Now, you guys were smart enough to fire her, incompetent behind. So now she's in Memphis. So we have this connection. I don't appreciate it. Oh. You guys ought to try the idea that she and the current mayor just elected came up with. Let's identify the criminals and pay them not to commit crime.
All right, I want to stick on Fulton County, not Memphis right now.
That's there, but we have that connection. See,
You have, but
I'm mad at you.
Fulton County sent her to you, and I got to deal with her.
Sending her on here, but maybe that's the white supremacy they're talking about. There's not one in charge. I just thought maybe there was, since they keep talking.
I want to move back to Fanny. I want to bring this up. So, because I want to go to the money, because I did get your email. I want to touch on that a little bit. So, Fanny Willis office flagged for potentially high risk spending practices. Now, we talked about this multiple times, about her requesting money from the federal government, or what was it, $3 million, $7 million. And now Jim Jordan, honey, representative out of Ohio, wants to have her sent in front of a congressional committee. When is that going to happen? Because, she needs to. But it's not just her. It's not just her having her.
Petting her.
That's not just her having her hand in the cookie jar.
Biden protecting her.
Yeah, thank you. So when we get to the sheriff of Fulton County, LaButte, you was mentioning to me earlier that he was spending money, taxpayer dollars, for personal use, correct?
Yes.
Is this the clip here? Because there's several clips.
I think so, starting at like
2-minute mark.
9. It might have been the 9-minute mark. I'm not sure.
Okay, because the email you sent me, it said at 2:09 in the video.
If that's what it said, it should be at 2:09 if I didn't miss.
All right, let me play it.
All right, entertain a motion to approve, motion to adopt by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Vice Chair Abdul Rahman. Please vote.
And the vote.
I think I might have written that wrong. It might have been at the 9-minute and 12-second mark.
Okay, wait a minute.
While you're indexing that.
You for recognizing us and also for continuing the legacy of
Yeah, I think it was at the 9-minute mark.
Thank you so much.
Or sorry, it wasn't 2 minutes. It was 2 hours and 9 minutes. That's what it was. It was 2 hours.
Oh yeah, we can't play the whole thing, but
So basically what happened, and I also sent you a hard copy of the report, there was an independent study of Fulton County spending, and the two high risk areas were the sheriff and the DA, because of the way they've been spending money and have not will not come clean and open the books. So what we're calling for as citizens is to have a forensic audit of their books and an investigation into how the jail has been run. One of the last things that the sheriff did was he purchased a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van at a cost of about $200,000 and said it was for a mobile command post. Well, if you look at the pictures, this looks like off that show Pimp My Ride. It's got white leather seats. There's nothing command center about it, but it's been exposed that he did this. And I sent you the documents where he spent all kinds of money that should have been for the prisoner welfare fund. That's just outrageous. You know, money at Chick-fil-A, face painting, DJ, for parties, all kinds of stuff.
I'm muting myself. So this right here, I open up this one and what is this? It says Fulton County Sheriff Office. The attachments is a memorandum, direct response to the request for Commissioner Bob Ellis for such data from the Sheriff Inmate Welfare Fund. Yeah, that was a scandal. The Inmate Welfare Fund, a yearly audit by the company contracted by Fulton County. And what was the other here? Okay, Fulton County Procurement Assessment County Commissioners Briefing. So what is this exactly?
So that was an independent study into how the funds were being spent. And as you see on the slide, I think it's that slide where they show that both the sheriff's office and the DA's office are at elevated risk for misappropriated misuse of funds.
Mhm.
And if you look back at that long list of items that the sheriff bought with inmate welfare funds, it was used for everything but that, seems like, for things, you know, outside of jail, that there's no way that the inmates were participating in that or it's for their welfare. But he spent that money, including with his nice, and I can send you the pictures of his tricked out Mercedes van with the leather seats that he says is a command post. So again, we're going to be calling again and again until we get the 4 votes that there needs to be a forensic audit, a complete forensic audit of the sheriff's office and the DA's office, and find out where this money is and where it's been spent. The county commissioners are moving to remove their spending authority, but because they are constitutional officers under the state of Georgia, in the past, because you had honest people in those jobs, the money was spent the correct way. But because now it's out of control, they're trying to pull it back so that they have to spend the money for exactly what it was budgeted for.
Wait a minute. Wait. This is a first. You're telling me that the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office have been assessed as elevated risk of misappropriation and misuse of public funds.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
And he sent me the proof. That's what I showed on. Well, I think you.
Oh, you got
showed
to
him.
be kidding me. The DA's office and the sheriff's office. Ooh, that's
Okay, so is anybody going to be brought up on charges? So with all this investigation with the county commissioners and everything, you know, the slides I just showed, what are the repercussions?
Right now, none. The biggest repercussion is if we can get them out of office, if we can vote them out of office. There's a good chance we can get rid of Labat. There's a guy who is a former deputy sheriff, 30 years experience. His name is J.T. Brown. He's running for sheriff. That's who most people I know are supporting.
I've talked to Brown, by the way. I have talked to him.
In fact, Sheriff Labat fired 3 deputies last week because they were seen in civilian clothes on their own time at one of J.T. Brown's events. He even sent deputies to their homes to collect their uniforms. This after he was on television lamenting the fact that he did not have enough people to work in the jail. So if you don't have enough people to work in the jail, why are you firing 3 very experienced deputies who are jailers? And the simple answer is because they were seen on a video at his chief opponent's event.
Mr. Brown's event, no relation, by the way.
Right, Mr. J.T.
Fine, no
James
relation.
Brown.
I've talked with him at some great length, hours worth. But I mean, isn't that one of those white supremacists in the background that's still current sheriff what to do? You know, you can't have your niggers running around loose like that. You got to put them under control.
Well, this is so, just real quick before I let you go, Mike, and I definitely want to have you come back on. So LA Pink, she sent me a list, I guess, of all the people who have been committing corruption in the county. She put Atlanta and Fulton counties corruption's finest. Mayor Dre stealing money, Fanny Willis getting loose on Grey Goose, Sheriff Labatt stealing money from the inmate welfare fund, Commissioner Hall chasing balls around County Hall, Commissioner Ike Arrington charged with battery, trying to run for Commissioner District 6, Ali Carter charged with terrorist threats, County Clerk Jay Alexandra accidentally to Sheriff Labatt. She filed a TPO against LA Pink.
And wait a minute, don't forget that Fanny Willis now has a criminal charge pending against her out of Maryland for inappropriately recording confidential phone conversations.
Right. So with all this, being said, right, against Fanny Willis, now the sheriff, but let's just focus on Fanny Willis for a second. With all this, right, she is still fighting the disqualification, appeal, because she still wants to be the main prosecutor on the Trump Georgia case, Georgia election RICO case. And I just look at that, is she doing it to save face, or is she really doing it because she think that she can actually win this case?
I don't know what she thinks, but what I believe is that she's doing it to placate DC and the Northwest Corridor liberals, because they're the ones who are funding her now and supporting her. Wade met with the White House attorney twice. Why was that? Why was he meeting with Joe Biden's White House attorney twice? And he was silly enough to bill the county the hours that he spent meeting with that attorney twice. So I think she's looking to get a higher office beyond district attorney, and that this, quid pro quo type thing is what I think is happening. I can't prove that, but that's what I would say, because I don't think this Trump trial is going to go anywhere, but this brings her to the spotlight. She gets to be the champion. And I think it was a gift that the judge.
Exactly.
Say what?
The champion of what now?
Well, look at.
She would literally have to win this case to be labeled a champion.
No, because if you look at people on the left who lose, Al Gore became a hero when he lost. Stacey Abrams has made millions of dollars when she lost both races as governor.
Okay, you're talking about when she loses re-election.
I think it's going to be very difficult to get rid of Fanny in election, because the guy who's running against her is weak as far as being a candidate, and then the Republican running against her in Fulton County. It's very difficult for a Republican to win in Fulton County. Mm-hmm. But the way we can get rid of the sheriff and Natalie Hall on the Board of Commissioners is in the primary. Mm-hmm. Because Natalie Hall, Sonia Office, who's running against her, is a former police officer. If she can beat Natalie Hall, and if James Brown can beat Labatt, that will cut the criminal individuals in power in half in the county.
So speaking to that, because I don't want to go into who these people are, because majority of the listeners are not in Fulton County, but to your point, that is why it's very important for people to vote in the primary. You can vote people out who are currently in office during the primary. So yeah, that's why I will encourage everyone, particularly in Fulton County, vote in the primary to get these people out. Speaking of voting, in Atlanta, right? This was on X. It says people in Atlanta received a letter from the IRS stating that they have to verify their identity in person in order to receive their refund. And you know how you have the left and black folk talking about voter ID, is racist and stuff like that. But here you have majority of these people in these lines are black people. And they're in line with their ID so that they could get their refund, their tax refund check. So they don't have a problem showing their ID for this. But they saying that it's racist to show your ID when you're voting.
That's white supremacy right there. They're keeping them down now.
If you go to Kroger or to Publix or any place else to buy a beer, or you go to the liquor store, you have to have ID, right? If you have groceries delivered to your house and has alcohol, you have to show an ID. If you go to the world's busiest airport in Atlanta, you have to have ID. If you go into any of these clubs, Atlanta's famous for its clubs. You go into the clubs, you have to have ID. If you get a drink at a restaurant, you have to have ID. That's not racist, but when you have to show your ID to vote, it is. That's an insult to Black people. That's what that is. Some people call that the soft bigotry of low expectations. I say there's nothing soft about it. It's pure bigotry because you're saying that Black people don't have the wherewithal to go get an ID card. And in the state of Georgia, if you can't afford one, you can get one for free. But all these Black folks who drive cars up and down the street every single day, they have a driver's license, which is ID, which you can use, which is the primary identification in the state of Georgia to register and to vote. So it's just a bunch of BS. And it's it's just liberals make an excuse so as to cheat when it comes to voting.
Right.
Of course, that's what it is. Obviously, it's a crock. You got coming out of Atlanta, and I think it was Fulton County 4 years ago, some clown woman that I interviewed on a Friday show I do. She was trying to justify doing that commercial to get Black men to vote, take your booties to the poll, where they had some strippers on the pole. We were looking at their bare butt cheeks, and then it turned out a third of them weren't even women; they were trannies. So you're supposed to look at
down in Atlanta, Magic City. Do you remember that, Mike? That was,
No, I don't remember that one.
that was take your booty. Well, yeah, it was about the time you got there. It was take your booties to the pole. So it was this thing where they had these strippers on strip poles, and that was supposed to inspire Black men to go vote for the Democratic Party. So yeah, okay.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is the last thing I'll say about this. When Kemp ran the first time, he barely beat Stacey Abrams. And I went back and looked at the voting across the state of Georgia, and there's a red streak that goes from up by Savannah, across Atlanta, down to Columbus. And people were, and I told people that, this state is turning purple. It's not deep red anymore, or deep red anymore. And because this blue streak that runs through the state. And so when I did my own personal analysis of the last election, I told everybody, I said, Governor Kemp is going to trounce Stacey Abrams. And everybody said, can you believe that? She's got more money this time and more name recognition. And I said, because I just listen to people. You learn more by listening than you do by talking. And just by listening to people, I realized that Black men could not stand Stacey Abrams. Now, they didn't go vote for Brian Kemp, but they didn't vote at all. And so he won by, I believe it was 11.5 points this time, where the last time was like 1%. And so I see the same thing happening with Trump and Biden. Younger Black men are not going to go vote in large numbers for Joe Biden because they cannot stand him. And they may not vote for Trump, but they're not going to vote for Biden. And I'm hoping that in this primary, that the voters who would have normally come out and voted for Sheriff Labatt, for Natalie Hall, that they will, and Fanny Willis will think again and say, you know what? They violated my trust. They have made it harder for Black people, particularly women, in high places because of their shenanigans and their antics. And I'm not going to support that. The thing that upsets me most about Fanny Willis is that she went in a Black church and hid behind a pulpit to cover her malfeasance and her own personal shortcomings. I don't care who she sleeps with, but when that affects your job and justice in our county, then I have a problem with it. The same way with Natalie Hall. I don't care who you sleep with, but when it costs the taxpayers of this county $1 million, you know how many homes for senior citizens we could have fixed up with $1 million? So that's my problem with the folks. That's my issue. And I think this election, there's going to be some surprises.
Well, you know what? I'm getting the same impression on the ground. I've been in a bunch of cities, and I'm noticing that the Black men, the few months ago, they were speaking quietly. Now they're not so quiet about it. You can hear it. And one of the things I think that has enabled that is Miss Fanny. People are looking at her and they're saying that's who the Democratic Party is trying to cram down our throats, and we're supposed to be going for her rather than for something else. And we come in with hand on hip doing the snake dance routine with it, snake charm thing. And that's what they're trying to push. That was Stacey Abrams. That was Lori Lightfoot. They call Beetlejuice up in Chicago. That's what's her name, Letitia James up in New York. They're beginning to see what they got, and I've been joking about it on X. I say, you know what? They get them a comely wench who doesn't mind being a bed wench. She gets real good. They move her up to the third floor. She gets gray in her roots, and then they make her a mammy and put her in charge of the Negroes on the plantation. So that seems to be the Democratic Party way. Get you a mammy and put one out there in the, what is it, the National Observatory and the VP thing, if even though it's a fake one. And you run black folk by running black men, and essentially it's a buy into this feminist anti-masculine thing on top of it.
I hear a lot of that here. I hear a lot of black men complaining about the fact that they're this anti-black, strong, anti-male period, but they just get the beat down on a daily basis and they're tired of it. They're not, they don't feel like they're being respected by anybody. And then the black women who are in power are bad mouthing them unceasingly. And so a lot of black men, maybe not so much the women, but a lot of black men have had it. They're done, and they're not going to take it anymore.
Now, I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
I was trying to find a clip, and I need to be a little bit more organized with these clips because I have like a whole bunch in here. It was speaking to how the Democrat Party was going to try and keep black men and black people voting Democrat. And it was two preachers on Al Sharpton's show, and they were saying how, they're trying to organize and rally, the churches to go out and persuade black people, I guess, to stay voting blue. And I cannot find this clip. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Jesus. I just want to play this real quick. Hold on.
Hawkins, former faith-based director of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and former DNC director of Interfaith Outreach, and the Reverend Malcolm Byrd, pastor of the historic Mother AME Zion Church in Harlem. Thank you both for joining me today. To start, what can you both tell our viewers on the efforts to mobilize Black voters ahead of the election, just 8 months away? Pastor Hawkins, you first.
Sure. Thank you, Rev. Well, I can say that along with the efforts that you've mentioned, there are a number of national scope efforts that are going on. The National African American Clergy Network, the Conference of National Black Churches are all staging significant efforts to educate and mobilize. And that's really basically doing what the church has done all along, and that's to be the nexus of education and organization and mobilizing. So it is really taking shape in a national scope. You're going to have over 1,000 people who are going to be able to equip individuals on the ground to make sure that access to the polls, pushing back against voter suppression, and then also making sure that people really do have the opportunity to exercise their franchise.
Now, Reverend Byrd, you pastor a historic church and you work with it. You also see.
That was the end of that clip. So yeah.
Pulpit pimps.
Right. So just to sum up this conversation, I'm glad you had time to come up today, Mike. When we're talking about Fanny Willis, when we're talking about the Black legacy of corruption really coming out of, the cradle of the civil rights movement, Atlanta, by way of Fulton County, it was always, like the judge said, pulpit pimps. It was kind of like through the church. And that type of tactic has not changed. And it seemed like it has not wore off because, well, to a certain degree, because she's getting support from the feminist movement. She's getting support for people who are still brainwashed within the Black church. So, yeah. So, I want you to.
You only need one Black leader. That's your preacher. The rest of the Negro men need to be suppressed because they'll cause mischief.
Right. So I want you to give us your final thoughts, Mike, before I let you go. And again, definitely want to have you back on.
I think, I'm a very Christian person myself. I'm in Mass every Sunday. And I think one of the problems with the Black church is these preachers who are more politicians and money hungry than they are preachers. And the Black church has lost a lot of its credibility over recent years because of that. A lot of our young people are not going to church anymore because they see through the facade of some of these, not all, but some of these ministers. And tying yourself to one political party is a mistake, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Just like Malcolm X said 60 years ago, don't be a political chump. And we are the only race of people that vote blindly for one party. And like I said earlier, there's some folks who vote as if they have Democrats stamped on their birth certificate, and we've got to get out of that. And we've got to do just like every other ethnic group does and say to the politicians, what are you going to do for me now? And get rid of the labels. Stop voting label and skin color. Start voting your values.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Russell. Appreciate you coming up. And like I said, I definitely want to have you back on because we are staying on this Fulton County crisis until the election.
All right. Well, I'll be happy to come back anytime. Thank you, Judge. Thank you for having me.
Hey, stay in touch. We'll talk. We're putting together a thing trying to be the coordinating factor for what's going on down there in Fulton County. I call it the resistance.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. And we'll definitely be in contact. So have a good night.
Thank you.
I call it the coffee versus the chocolate milk.
That's corny. No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Have a good night.